You guys set?
Oh, yeah.
Shusha.
It is time. Oh, yeah.
So a local nature expert once told me to be careful about leaving food and stuff out because all the local wildlife shows up. And here's Burr Williams, man. We've got a little food. And,
here's beer, and here I am.
Theory proven. We have discovery.
Yeah. So how's Burr Williams?
Alive and kicking.
That's good,
man. That's about all I can say.
That's me. People ask how I'm doing with all my drama, and I tell them I'm still buying green bananas. And so that's pretty cool. Cheers, gents.
Cheers.
Burr is guinea pigging the session. How is that turning out?
Day quencher. It's sort of mild. It's not really
session ale.
Yeah, that's kind of anytime you see the word session on an ale in particular, that's where you will see it. Any session beer is going to be a low alcohol beer. So it's something that you can sit down and have a session of beers. Nice. That is where the term comes from. It actually the session beer originated mainly in England because even to this day, as I understand it, they are taxed on the amount of alcohol in the beers.
Oh, wow.
So the lower the ABV, alcohol by volume, you have in the beer, the less taxes you pay on it.
Oh, wow.
It's
nice knowing a brewer.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's nice knowing a brewer and a mechanic, a gun dealer. It's cool. Keep your circle of friends tight.
Yeah.
I'm on a shandy kick here lately. It's just hitting what's left of my taste buds right. Leinenkugel, is that?
Oh yeah.
These
Leinenkugels.
Yeah, this is a grapefruit shandy, and if I make it.
What exactly is a shandy?
A shandy is a mixture of fruit juice and beer. And that is something that originated, going into beer history here, the popularity of it, or it became popular in Germany, because in the hot summers in southern Germany, what they would do is they figured out we can mix, they also figured out they can mix soft drinks with beer, but fruit juice worked best. And so you'll see shandies that are orange shandies that are grapefruit shandies. Those are the more popular ones. The orange ones tend to be very low in alcohol, 2.8% or so, less than 3%. The reason for that is because in the summer, everybody rides bicycles in Germany and also in the Netherlands as well. The bicycles are hugely, hugely popular. I wish they were more popular here because I love riding my bicycle, but I'm taking my life in my hands every time I do in this town now.
Yep.
But the thing is that you get refreshed, you get some carbohydrates, you get rehydrated, and you get a little bit of alcohol, but you don't get so drunk you can't ride your bicycle home.
There we go.
Then they call it the Radler. And in Germany, a shandy is often called a Radler, which means the bicyclist.
Oh, wow.
So there you go.
Well, that's cool. See, I learn something every day.
Yeah, useless beer information.
I didn't care for it.
Thanks.
When people brew it, we talked about this in the session with the guy that owned the axe throwing shop, Blake Cryer, that it often comes out too sweet.
Yeah.
And I tried we went to this really cool kind of trendy hipstery joint in Houston called Union Kitchen. If you ever get a chance, it's sort of a chain, and we met the owner. Really cool people. It's amazing food, but they had a beer mosa, which was they mixed beer and orange juice. Yeah, so brunch thing is pretty good. And so I've come to really like these, and they're not too sweet. And there's a cranberry ginger that my wife really likes. It's
oh wow,
it's got that right bite to it. So. And I'm going to be watching these cameras. Man, I'll look like hell. We got a tour again. Uh-huh. I was starting to think about this. So now I get the dark circles, and I'm getting kind of pale, and random nosebleeds. So if that's not the most rock star thing ever.
That's heavy. That's metal.
We need to tour again,
that's
right?
That's really metal. Yeah. I didn't sleep very well last night, so I wore my flat hat to keep some shade on my face so you don't see the bags under my
Awesome,
eyes.
dude. I dig that hat, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So I'm currently going through my overalls phase because I'm retired, and I figured out by accident I was getting ready for hunting season, and I had some overalls, camo, and they're nice and insulated. And I realized for somebody that's had a lot of gut surgery, wearing jeans or slacks or anything for too long with all the drama that's going on in the Reconstruction, gets uncomfortable. And I put those on like, oh yeah, this is all right. So this morning I had some chores to do out in the yard, and I put them on with my Duluth flannel shirt. And I almost put on my driver hat, and I thought, man, I'm like one step away from a New England workshop deal, so that was too much, and let it go. But so one of the things I do when I'm laid up after chemo, and it's kind of when I catch up on all my social media stuff, and Burr is one of the reasons I'm still even on Facebook for the most amazing original content, and I'm not a huge political guy. Like I said, this is a place for the politically homeless. But I follow, the peaks and valleys. But the greatest mystery in our local social media circle that has baffled and what we say unified people in our area. Did you find your glasses?
Yeah.
I mean, the world wants to know. People were checking. So Burr's like, he's just posted like, I can't find my damn glasses. And I don't know how long it took, but I found myself checking for updates,
Yeah.
I'm like, so my blood work's good. No sign the cancer's advanced. You know what? I wonder if Burr found his glasses. I'll look that up.
No, I haven't.
I hate that, man. I'm the same way. I lost my wallet 2 days ago. And again, I'm having a lot of memory problems, and I couldn't figure it out. Was doing the whole, where'd you see it last? Well, I chemo blackout. I couldn't remember 3 days, and my wife said, "Did you put it in the office?" And I said, "No, I never. If it's in the office, it's on the desk. That's where I always put it." And she opened the lap drawer, and there's my wallet where I never put it. So I totally feel for you.
Yeah. So I've been going through trying to find all of my old vinyl because I got a new turntable for my birthday, and got a turntable stand. I went out to my parents' house, got all my parents' old vinyl, all the great stuff from the 60s and 70s I grew up listening to, and I've been down a vinyl wormhole since then. But I thought, I'm going to go find all of my actual vinyl, which was scattered through the house in the audio video suite closet. There was vinyl in there. I had vinyl behind stuff, like up against the wall behind blackout curtains that I didn't know was there in weird parts of the house. Still turning up, finding vinyl. And I was looking for these two albums in particular by Rush, an album called Hemispheres and an album called 2112 that I bought from Gary Rowe at Blue Gravy.
Oh, wow,
Yeah. And I never played those records. He told me, that is pristine vinyl, son, when I bought it. He was like, be careful. There's not a scratch on it. And so I never even played them. I thought, hey, you know what? I got this new digital turntable. I'm going to play those records. Couldn't find them anywhere.
Is he still around?
I don't know. But I did finally play them.
Either moved or died.
Oh, no. I hope he didn't pass.
Let's see. He and his wife split up.
Yeah.
And she ran a seamstress sewing shop at the old original Clark's Meat place, because she used to do my uniforms and stuff. And then he moved to that place off of Big Spring.
Mm-hmm. And that's where he was for a super long time.
Yeah. He was the go-to Les Paul guy.
Yeah,
I guess until Barry popped up.
Fixed everybody's guitar.
Yeah, he worked on a few of my guitars over the years. That's how in fact, that place he had on North Big Spring was a vinyl shop and guitar repair.
Yeah,
he was a luthier.
Well, he had Blue Gravy over on Carter
off of Carter Street.
Yeah.
And we rented a house by there, and I used to go in there all the time and pick up.
He called it something like Desert Rose Guitars and Vinyl or something when he was on Big Spring Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Desert Rose.
Yeah, Desert Rose.
Yeah, the record shop on
Big Spring.
Did I say Carter Street?
Well, the one on Carter Street was Blue Gravy.
Carter Street was Blue Gravy, thanks. And then it was Desert Rose or something like that.
For all you locals who are wondering what happened to Gary Rowe, we're wondering ourselves. I hope he's out there alive and doing well. But I found those records in the place my wife told me they would be, and I told her, no, I would have never put them there.
Yeah.
And she goes, just look, and sure enough, they were sitting right there. I hate it when my wife's right. It happens so often.
Yeah.
All the time.
Tim, we've all married out of our league, and
Big time.
it shows. But I do remember one of the guys I was in a band with is a huge Les Paul collector and freak, Rick Morgan, and he went there a lot. And Rick has some amazing Les Pauls. And I think it was Rick who went in there. This would have been within the last 10 years, and Gary had made a comment that he was scaling down, getting ready to move. I think that's a thing.
Well, I would very much like to know where he is. He was a big part of my life growing up. He had Gary's House of Music over on Maida Drive next to the old Endless Horizons record store. And I spent way more time down there than I should have. I accidentally broke a guitar one time in his shop. I didn't hang it back up on the hanger correctly, and it fell down. And I just apologized up and down. I was like, so sorry, man. He was like, hey, you got to be careful.
He was the Burr Williams of the local music area for a long time.
I was like 13 years old when that happened. Yeah.
There's a lot of cool guitar history. We need to drag some of those guys in here. Yeah. But
it's so cool when there is somebody like that threads people together over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows Gary. I mean, that's that. If you were in the music, you knew him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you're vinyl, if you're a guitarist, that's how it was. And we have Joe Shepard.
Yeah,
too. Joe Shepard's and everybody nods. Everybody knows Joe Shepard.
I've got a 83 CBS Fender Stratocaster that I played and took on tour for years and years and years. And about 15 years ago, it's an 83 model, I think. I bought it from Mayborn Axton's grandson, who wrote Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah.
And it was originally modified by George Gruen at Gruen Guitars in Nashville. And I wanted to make some changes with it. And Joe Shepard was the only guy I was going to trust with that. And he changed a bunch of electronics and some stuff according to my specifications. And that's been one of the best things I've ever had done to a guitar by a luthier. But I hold him in very, very high regard. As well as Ben Nunez, who saved my 59 Les Paul.
Yeah, Ben has worked his way right up there with the greats. Joe, was only one of my Fenders up there, but my vintage Fender in this one, he sets them up for me, and you just have a 10-minute conversation with him, and the guy knows exactly how to do it, and he does it right, and knows all the tricks, and always tells you a joke, and fantastic guy. And
who's that guy that runs the furniture store that's such a real hot guitar player?
It's Bert, right?
Yeah, Bert Herron.
Is that Bert Herron?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's what was that band he used to? Is he still around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was the Marbles.
Yeah.
Is that it?
The Marbles was back in the 80s. I remember when I first started working out at No Mountain Recording Studio in the 80s, I did some final mixing on one of their albums. It was called Meet the Marbles.
I follow him on Facebook, and he's Bert's his nickname, and man, Bert, I'm so sorry. It's in the recesses. What his anyway, I follow him, and he does some jamming online occasionally.
Okay.
And I haven't seen him on the marquee at the bar. He played there a lot.
Well, the great thing about guys like Gary Rowe was that he was a linchpin at bringing musicians together. There was a big musician scene that doesn't really exist in West Texas right now. And the musicians were all very close to one another. We all, for the most part, there were a few guys maybe you didn't hang out with or was in a different circle. But Gary's House of Music and Blue Gravy Records, that was a sort of an epicenter for where like-minded musician types and audiophiles in particular would come to meet and get to know one another. And just like Burr was saying, that's one of the reasons guys like that are so important in a community, because they naturally, without even trying, they just bring people together.
Yeah.
People and experiences and
all through the 80s and part of the 90s, and since then it's sort of faded away.
It has, and it's kind of a sad thing. But music has changed. Combo music is not what people listen to anymore. They don't go out to listen to a combo band. They're not really interested in combo music. They're more interested in really, really highly produced electronic music, and of course hip hop has taken everything over. EDM has a strong foothold, And so music is not made or performed like it used to be. And so, traditional hardcore, woodshed musicianship isn't appreciated the way it used to be.
It's, and I'll always counter Tim with this. It just moved. It's in Europe. It's in Europe now.
You're right about that.
It is.
He's right about that.
And we'll shut down the music part. I want everybody to go look up. We will suck one of Midland's iconic naturalists and minds into a conversation between two jaded musicians. Everybody go pull up the name Kinga, Kinga, Glick, Glyck. She's a 20-year-old Polish bassist that has reintroduced funk to the world. She's amazing. And who does she sound like? Everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Larry White. There's some Bootsy in there. Plus there's some Jocko and all those guys. So,
Jocko Pastoris.
Yeah. That poor guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that and a lot of that sound in there. And it's good to see that, but unfortunately you can't cruise down to the local corner bar here and here anymore. You're gonna get something else or nothing at all.
Right.
And that's how it goes. And we had with this conversation last time. Guys like Laird, from Terlingua and places like that used to swing through, and you just don't. It sucks. But what doesn't suck, and I want to talk to you about. Tell me what you're doing at the library and all these groovy books you're pulling up, man. It was fascinating.
Well, the library bookstore, which is over here on Michigan Street, not too far away, on Wednesdays and Saturdays it's open, and that's also when volunteers can come in and help out. And for example, today what I was doing was taking a whole bunch of books off a shelf, putting them in a cart, and they were going to be moved someplace else. But part of the benefit of doing that volunteer work is you get to take a nice long look at all the books.
All right.
And you get to take one home.
Nice.
I'm amazed at what you're finding. I mean, the niche books and things that you would post them, and I would get online and occasionally on Google you find excerpts from them, and I'm amazed. And I'm kind of
that's one thing about Midland is even though there's not all that many people that do read, the people that do read are pretty erudite. And so you get all sorts of really strange things and really cool things. My personal niche is Texana and Western history and Native American and that sort of stuff. And so when I run across something that really portrays what West Texas is about or some sort of element of West Texas history, it's like the book that I found by B. Traven called The Carreta. And the Carreta is an old-fashioned wooden-wheeled cart that was first driven up here probably by, I'm having a senior moment. What's the guy's name?
You're in the right place for that, brother.
Yeah, no doubt.
He came here in the 1540s, and he went up almost to Kansas, and then he went back to...
it's right on the tip of my brain.
You guys are making me feel good.
Not one.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but anyway,
he's one of the discoverers and explorers of the Llano Estacado.
Yeah, absolutely. The first Spanish guy on the Llano Estacado in 1542, 1541.
Why can we not? Let's move on, and it'll hit one of us, and we'll say it.
My brain is in Homer Simpson mode, going, hey, no, I got nothing. Yeah, but
anyway. Those sort of stories, that sort of history is what I really like when I can remember it. But it is so much fun to find a good book that you have never seen before, and you pick it up and you read it, and that's the way it is with The Coyotes by B. Traven. B. Traven was a real fascinating guy. He was a German who, I guess in the 1920s, jumped on a ship and became one of those guys that just went around the world going on ships. And then he finally settled in Mexico. And one of the books that he wrote was The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which turned into a famous movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart, yeah. And
Badges? We don't have to show you no badges.
stinking badges.
We don't need no stinking badges.
But he was somebody that wrote, I would say probably at least a dozen books. And when I came across the Coyote, it was like, holy mackerel, I mean, where'd this come from? And the deal is it's such a real good book where it really documents exactly the lifestyle of those folks that did that. I mean, think about it. You're driving this wooden cart, the wheels scream every time it rolls, and you're getting pulled by a couple of oxen, and you do it for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles.
On through without a road, by the way.
Without a road. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. We talk about how we live in the age of information, and we do. We unarguably live in the age of information, but I guarantee you, a book like that, you're not going to be able to find it on the internet. You might be able, if you know what to look for, the title and the author and who published it, you may be able to get lucky and find a used copy of it that you can order and have delivered to your house.
Yeah.
But there is so much knowledge in places like that you can't find anywhere else, knowledge that might otherwise have been lost had it not been put into print. That's why when for those of you who are locals, you might remember Miss B's.
Oh yeah.
I loved the smell of that place. I loved that building. I loved being in there. And
the last place she was, or the place she was before that?
The place that was over behind the old Safeway building off of Illinois.
Okay, she had another place that was over here by the hospital for years before she moved over there.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, it was on the other side of the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was another local icon.
And you could pick up something that you did not know existed for $2.
Yeah.
I have so many old books at my house. I even have some old textbooks that were just interesting to me. But I'm right there with you. In fact, I brought a couple of things that are out of print from my naturalist stuff from the 50s, and it's Poisonous Dwellers of the Desert.
All right.
That shows from Texas into Arizona, all of the poisonous snakes and scorpions. And the thing about this is from the 50s, and the thing that makes me sad is that it talks about certain scorpions and certain snakes that you just don't get to see in West Texas anymore. So many people out here, much developed, so much urbanization, so much industrial sprawl that a lot of these really fascinating creatures, you just don't get to see them anymore.
That's true.
If it wasn't for these two out of print books, people might not even think about that anymore. They might not even consider the ramifications.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want to. I just had my first personal cancel culture experience.
Really?
I did. Personal.
Tell us about it.
And I really want to put this to you, Burr, because this is your area of the woods, about Native American history. Mine is narrow. I did the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts thing, in which a lot of elements of kind of combined Native American culture is celebrated and passed on. And then huge thing when I was in school as well. Very respectful of it in history and honest about European engagement and the atrocities and all that stuff. And then from another perspective, when I kind of got into two things. One was my family history, which there's some very unusual native weirdness that I never would have expected. And from studying, reading up on military tactics and such of the Indian War era and our first cartridge rifles, the trapdoor and all that stuff. I learned, we said this in our last podcast, about people are people throughout history. But what happened, I got on a forum, or it was a Facebook thing with a friend, and both of us were it's only visible to our friends. And somebody was really upset about Columbus Day, which I totally get. I can understand you being upset about Columbus Day, and I understand why people are not. It makes sense, when you watch the cultural flow of things. Somebody made a comment. I don't even remember the comment I replied to, but my response was essentially this, that if you look into the history in the native culture and when Europeans came over, the means that the Europeans came into power is not much different than how a lot of the larger, the more successful apex tribes did. They did some horrible things to each other.
Yeah, you bet.
And we're talking, borderline genocide. You don't have the numbers, obviously, that the Europeans
slavery
did.
And everything else.
Slavery, rape,
sex slaves,
kidnap, all that stuff. That they did that. And then I said the problem was the Europeans came over and they're like dealing with aliens. That would be what it was like today, like from outer space with the War of the World ships and lasers.
There is no way.
The Europeans were just way better at all of that.
Technology.
Yeah, the technology and their legal systems and all. And I was flagged. That's what I said in a paragraph, and I got a kickback for hate speech.
Yeah, that's a shame that happens.
Yeah.
The book, one of my favorite books on this subject, and it's one of the fairest books I've ever written. You've probably read it already. Is Empire of the Summer Moon by Sam Gwynne.
Yeah.
And Sam Gwynne goes into painstaking detail not only of how brutal we were in finally deciding, hey, look, the Comanches have got to go. But how brutal the Comanches were.
Yeah, you bet.
Look, humans, I'll let you expound on this, but I will just hand this over to Burr by saying human beings are inherently violent creatures.
We're assholes.
Yeah.
We want to think that we're better now than before, and we're still people.
Comanches are sort of interesting. They showed up in northern New Mexico about 1700. They weren't here in West Texas before that. In fact, they didn't even move to West Texas until probably about 1740, 1750. The Apaches were really in control of this part of the country for a real long time. And when the Comanches came in, they were sort of split the Apaches. The Jicarilla Apache went west into the mountains north of Santa Fe and all that area, while the Lipan moved south and came down here to San Angelo and that area, and then finally on down to near Austin. So it was only this really brief period that the Comanches were boss, from 1700 to 1870, and yet you read people going, for hundreds of years, Comanche war tribe. No, I'm sorry, that only lasted maybe 2 generations at most. There was what was her name? Mama Took. She was this huge, fat Comanche lady in the 1830s, and she had 2 sons, Baja del Sol, and I forget the name of the other one, but those were the ones that left Texas and went to Mexico and did all the damage down to Mexico, and that was only in the 1830s and 1840s.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't this huge, long period of time.
Yeah.
People, you'll see on the internet sometimes map of the American Indian tribes before Anglos came here. No. What year?
Right. Exactly. Because
it changes all the time.
One of the reasons there were so many buffalo out here, and there were so much, and the rangeland was so untouched, is because for millennia there was no human activity out here.
It was real tough to kill a buffalo before you had a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to chase it off a cliff, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was just my experience. It's not pleasant to say that people that were, historically and it just in record numbers and horrible means
we live
pushed aside that they were people too, and they did it. And I'll give an example of some of the native weirdness. We fortunately, on both sides of my family, there are people who are super into genealogy, and by the time you're a kid, how screwed up everything was. Everybody's grandmother was a Cherokee princess and was quarter whatever and half whatever. And 23andMe kind of stuff is shutting people down. Before that era, we had the aunt or the grandmother or somebody who was really into it. And actually both sides of my tree were traced all the way back to England. One of them as far back as the 1500s. And so if you Google our last name, Van, it is a British name that was originally Vane, V-A-N-E, which is awesome. And works.
Boy, that totally...
Right.
That puts so many pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. But it goes back to some guy that was, a nobody in a village in Kent and comes all the way back. And the Combis side was from around London. And the native aspect is, and intermarriage and all that, all happened in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Back then, in Tennessee and places like that. And I was so cool. I was looking at the names, and now I'm not direct to these people, and I don't know how to explain it. Genealogy people can chime in, but he's way out here, so we would be like 250th cousins 97 times. But anyway, his name was Otter Lifter. Otter like
all right,
otter and lifter, and I thought, okay, I wonder how that happened.
Why do you ask my name, two dogs screwing?
Yeah. So
sorry, I couldn't pass that one out.
It's been a great day there, Beaver Spanker. How's it? So how did this? Is it a joke? Did we lift otters in a competition? Did he steal other people's otters?
Why? Well, there was apparently economic demand in that nation for a dude to lift otters.
Yeah,
which is great.
He's one of them, and then there's Chief Crazy. He was a chief, Crazy James Van and Rich Joe Van. They're all part of this. And again, I don't know how it all happened, but one of them, and I'm going to butcher this story, wound up because of their white influence and lineage, wound up as owners of a plantation with black slaves. Mm-hmm. And then in another mess, they became, they lost their property because they hired white men to do work.
Wow.
So, it's there was all this strangeness. And so when you get into history like that, not quite as chalk line as you get these days.
No.
Everything is so convoluted in history. One of the worst things that we've done on the left and on the right is that we have bought into our own confirmation biases so hard that we don't really want to know the real story. We just want to know a version of the story that makes us feel good about what we believe. And that's one of the worst things you can do.
Yep.
And how, for somebody like you, Burr, who appreciates the history for what it is and what it was, it's so hard to get a hold of the real thing I'm so glad you're doing things like digging in these little dark corners and finding these books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of weird. My folks, 1840s, a great-great-grandfather moved to Oklahoma and was the first missionary for the Seminoles who came from Florida. And so he knew Wildcat and Osceola and all of those famous names when they got put in a ship and sent from Florida out here. And when they got to Oklahoma, they thought, okay, this is Indian territory. We'll manage. We'll do it. But trouble is, there was still a little bit of a finger of the federal government, and also, to be honest, the Christian religion, which my great-great-grandfather was a representative of. And so Osceola and others headed to Mexico. And so they would travel from Oklahoma to Mexico, but they wouldn't go through Austin and all that part of, quote, Texas.
Yeah.
They would come out here and come down the edge of the Llano and then go down to the Pecos and then go on into Mexico down there, completely avoiding the Anglos.
Yeah.
And that sort of history, my great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, if you go to Wewoka, Oklahoma, there's the Seminole Museum. It's the museum for the Seminole Indians. Well, my great-grandfather is one of the displays, and all of his belongings are. And so there's that sort of a tie, and that's something that so many folks don't really realize, that there is this continuum of history that is not what you get out of the textbook.
Right.
And that's really the sort of the sad thing is we teach to the book. We try to create this unified history for all of us when we all have great varying histories.
Right.
And which is a heck of a lot more interesting. I mean, when you get a bunch of kids in a room, why do you sit there and go, this is what you're going to believe? Why don't you ask them what their histories are? I mean, think about it. Think of all the kids. I've got grandkids, and they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13. They're all sorts of different ages. I've got 7 of them. But the deal is they don't ever get a chance to tell their history. Like, for example, I've got 3 grandkids whose father, here in West Texas, we'd call him a mojado, a wetback. Mm-hmm. And he's crossed the border several times. He's probably the most hard-working guy I've ever met in my life. He's probably had 2 jobs at all times that he's been here, and 3 jobs part of the time. And he's done this incredible amount of work, and his story is completely ignored. I mean, think about it. You come from deep down in Mexico and Morelia, and you come the 1,000 miles to the border, and then you figure out how to get across the border, and then you figure out how to get a job. And I mean, to me, that is an epic story. I admire the heck out of the guy because of all the things that he's had to overcome and to not be able to, I mean, the fact that I'm talking about him right now, might throw him in jail. I mean, he's somebody that I just admire the heck out of.
That transitions to something we talked about before. There's a whole lot of people upset about people who are in really, no kidding, in favor of communism and these structures. But there's a growing number of people, Gen Xers mainly, who are fascinated with the people and their stories who were citizens in the Soviet Union. I've talked about Yushchenko's show, Sergei Sputnikov, and I'm not going to wave a flag and say, we should be communists, and it's all a bunch of crap. It is. I'm in complete admiration of the people who served in the Soviet military, and
which is one of the most brutal militaries to serve in. Just
to be in there. I mean, a fighter pilot. If you read Victor Belenko's story,
that one is fascinating. Right. Yeah, who defected over here?
Defected.
He brought a MiG with him and defected, and you got to read that book. It's Victor Belenko's book. It's called
MiG Pilot.
MiG Pilot. Yeah.
I asked Sergei Sputnikov about it on his live cast, and he said that was a blip in the news. That this pilot got lost, and
that was it.
He wound up in Japan because the CIA was quiet. They wanted the MiG-25, and they wanted him for what he knew about the MiG-20, because it was designed to kill the SR-71, which was in big business at the time. This is in the 70s. And he actually came through Odessa, Texas in his trip. He was really confused when a waitress offered him some ass. She was saying ice, but he didn't understand. He goes, I don't want ass. I want ice. He was one of the many Soviet-era citizens that were brought to the United States that believed that the first supermarket they saw was a complete setup.
Belenko thought, there's no way this is real. They built this place to fool me. There's no way that Americans have this much choice and this much bounty.
Nobody has this much of anything.
I'll tell you another thing in that book that really, really will go up that put chills up your spine and make you thankful for where you are, is that when he was talking to the farmer that he was working for, and he was like, how long would it take me to become an airline pilot here in America? And he's asking the question in jest. What would it take for me to become an airline pilot? And so the guy kind of sat down, he set some numbers. He said, well, what do you, let's figure out what the schools cost, and let's figure out what and they ran down some numbers and some time and some training, and he said you could probably be an airline pilot within about 10 years or so. And Belenko just stopped down completely. He said, he's almost asking the question in jest. He said, you mean to tell me that I live in a country where I'm currently cleaning up pig shit for a living, and within 10 years, I can be an airline pilot? It came from a place where that would never happen.
Right.
If you shoveled pig shit for a living, that's what you were going to be doing for your entire life, if you were lucky.
In that same village.
Yeah. So it's a great book. It's kind of fascinating how we... I'm fascinated with the story, like you were talking about your unmentionable distant relative, about the people who were willing to put it all on the line because they knew that if they could get to a place where the sweat of their brow could produce the fruits of their labor, they would be just fine.
Yeah.
And there are so many stories like that. That's why one of the things that I really appreciated about having Brandon Batch on the podcast was that he totally believes in that. But he said we have to address some things with regard to our structure and our framework to ensure that more of that can happen. And the humanity of our history is often lost in the politics of our history.
Well, one of my favorite things to do now.
Good point.
One of my favorite things is I buy. I have a couple of shirts with just random words in Russian, and wear them around, and everybody hates me. It's amazing.
You don't even know what it says.
They don't even know. It's just it's.
They think you're wearing a Shea shirt
from one side to the other. The most liberal hipster to the most conservative. They all assume that I hate them and their side because there's stuff going on with the Russian. It's got to be bad. It's just the kind of thing I like to do. Sergey, he developed his own logo that's very like Soviet military looking and sells it on T-shirts, and he has a blast with it. And he is one of my favorite stories of immigration to the U.S. and the success and all that. But we're going to miss stories like that. That's something. A friend of mine is a police officer, And he recalls days as a kid sneaking across the border before he had a chance to come in and be naturalized. And a guy I still know in Mexico, he was illegal, attended school, and actually worked in the U.S. and piled up some money, went back home, and he started an extremely successful business. And so what do I have to say about the laws and that system? Yeah, it's screwed up, but I like his story and what he did and the kind of person he is.
Ever heard of the Blue Light Trail?
No.
The Blue Light Trail is something that probably started back in the 1880s. And it was the way that if you were a citizen of Mexico and you wanted to come get a job in the U.S., you would come across the border and you would look to the windmills. And if there was work to be had, the rancher would put his lantern up on the windmill and put a blue covering over it. And so for, I would say until the 1950s, somebody would cross the border and be able to work their way slowly but surely north all the way to like Ruidoso, Roswell, that area. Mm-hmm. And you would do it by going, okay, there's the blue light. I can go over there. I can get some food and that sort of thing. There is so many hidden stories. We have this official history, and we create what we think are these laws and everything else, but the people themselves make do. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the case with the Blue Light Trail. I've run across various ranchers all the way from Del Rio, all the way up into southeastern New Mexico that knew exactly what I was talking about when I would say that.
That's interesting.
And it's something that lasted, like I say, 80 years. Uh-huh. It was this thing that everybody knew, but nobody knew.
Yeah.
They're hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. I've done a lot of a great deal of border security work, a lot of different ways, and I've talked about it here. And you talk to those old ranchers and the old folks around there, and everything was fine until the narco trade turned violent. Yeah. Until that happened, and then that caught everybody up, and they recall stories. There used to be a time when you'd see people crossing the ranch, and the rancher would ride out there and say, "Hey, look, you're just going through. You're looking for work," and they would take workers, like you said. It was sort of known if you were good at whatever job, this particular, roping and branding, I'm just going to throw something out, that you would cross through Burr's ranch, and if he had anything going, he'd help you out, and you would come through. And then the next time, it's a couple of guys with backpacks, and they shoot at you. Yeah. And the horror stories of what's happening down there now has just completely done. And even the city towns that my wife and I visited in Mexico, we saw that with the narco trade as it grew, just completely change everything.
Yeah. What was the town, Valle Union, yesterday, the day before? 21 people shot dead.
Oh, yeah. Down in Coahuila.
Yeah. Just south of Del Rio.
Yeah. Did you see the photos from that, by the way?
Yeah.
It looks like it doesn't even look real. There are so many bullet holes and everything.
There's
it was horrible.
Brandon and I had a conversation, and I kind of had to. We're going to have it again about the border stuff, because I realized, and looking over stuff I didn't know if it was things I could talk about because it was in a secured, sort of like military official use sort of channels, and then I started looking up and what's been published, but it is unbelievable the magnitude that's going on, and the
what's
tens
happening,
and hundreds of thousands of people, and it's obscuring all of that, because the stories we're talking about they can't happen anymore with that. And
right. And that's the sad part, because what's happening right now is we're now at a point in 2019 going into 2020, where Mexico is starting to actually descend into warlordism.
It's there. No, it is there.
But I'm talking about where there is zero effectiveness on the part of the government. The government is.
It's there. It's there in some places.
It is definitely. Yeah.
It's if you go to some of the training and read some of the documentation that's out there, and some of the stuff that was disseminated to us through official channels is now online. And then go read Black Hawk Down.
Yeah. There are a lot of parallels there.
Yeah, it's real sad. I mean, my wife grew up going into Mexico, going to all the famous places, and would pull into a town, and her parents would get the hotel on the corner and go to the cafe and all that sort of stuff. And then my folks, as late as the late 1970s, would get in their camper, go across the border, and they would travel for 6 weeks in Mexico.
Yeah.
And when they got tired, they'd pull over to the side of the road and go to bed in their camper.
Right.
But now?
Yeah. I grew up going to Mexico. I grew up going down into Mexico as a teenager. Some of my best memories are going down into Baja. When my uncle lived in Poway, California, which is which is part of the San Diego greater metroplex. Just wonderful people, beautiful country. I mean, it's a shame that we're at a point now where it's, the State Department has Mexico listed as level 2 risk, moving toward level 3 risk. And that's so sad because there is so much to learn about what's outside our box as Americans by going into Mexico. It's just such a great place, but now here we are with narco state warlordism down there.
We've talked about it here before, but my wife and I spent a lot of time in and around Manzanillo with friends who own property there. We traveled to Guadalajara and go to what was interesting to us was I had no idea all the artist colonies down there. And you go to one of them and maybe half are Mexican, the rest are from throw a dartboard at a globe. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And the mask that's hanging in our living room is from a little village celebration, and there's one guy there that he and his family have made these masks forever. The guy builds them with hammers and screwdrivers and paints them with house paint. They're wonderful, and I got to meet him and talk to him and watch him make them, and he let me pick one out. Experience of a lifetime, and all of what's going on now is cutting those kind of things. I could tell so many cool stories about Mexico, but one of the things I love to do when I go out of places like that is meet with other cops. And I was so confused in Mexico because in one town you got 97 cops.
Yeah.
And my Spanish it's meager to say the least, especially in Mexico. I'm so used, and we're way south, but I would meet a guy and I'd bring patches or challenge coins and want to trade with them, and he's like, I'm from the municipal chamber of coin operated machines. You just never know. But one thing that fascinated me about it, I met one guy who was there's one unit that's nothing but traffic police. And they're municipal, and municipal a minute could be 3 cities. Who knows? But they would direct traffic during peak hours because they don't have the intelligence systems in big quotes like we have that would modify over time, and things would get backed up. Well, a dude would go out, stand in a painted circle in the middle of the road, and wave traffic. And it was. I loved watching those guys because they were like watching a juggler, or these guys like these fishmongers, these dudes that could just throw out some kind of fish and just blam, have it just muscle memory and all. And these guys were great to watch. And I met one of them. We talked, and I gave him a patch. The dude took his shirt off and handed it to me. He says, I don't have any patches, and I'm off duty in 20 minutes anyway. And he had one of the Mexican-produced Volkswagens and let me look at that.
Oh, nice.
That was really cool.
Yeah, they made those until like 2006 or 2008.
Yeah, they were up there. His was fairly new. He's really proud of it. Anyway, it was a cool experience. Went down there a year or two later, and there's not a cop to be seen. Near one of our favorite restaurants, 3 of them were shot by narcos because of a dispute between the Port Authority and some narcos. Manzanillo's a seaport. I think it's the sailfish capital of the world, something like that. But it just completely changed the culture and experience of it. But so we actually,
in other words, we need to legalize all the crap.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
We've had that conversation many times.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
All you have to do is look at our Prohibition era and here in America and all the violence and all the death that it created, and it instantly went away once we ended Prohibition. That it's only elementary, it's rudimentary to think that there would be analogous things that would happen.
And we'd have families just like the Kennedys.
Yeah,
emerge because think about it. The Kennedys were rum runners.
They were bootleggers.
They were bootleggers. Yeah.
It's so strange when you get into the topic of drug legalization and all. And again, my thing about opinions, I want to know what somebody's experience is, before you pop off. And what is absolutely crazy, if you want to sit down and know how is just weed legalization in the U.S. going. It is so hard to get a straight answer because, first of all, I will reject any data that comes out of Colorado because that's a horrible test case. Because what did they do? They were the first ones to legalize. So what happened there? Everyone who is weed is such a high priority in their life, high enough to make them move.
Yeah.
Went to Colorado.
Yeah, you're not getting a good representation of data with that.
Right.
Oh, all these terrible things are happening. Well, look, man, they were the first ones. They're going to get all of the bad things that go with it in the beginning.
Right. All the weirdness took place, and
now there's 14 states it's legal.
Yeah,
14,
it's either
Washington, Alaska.
Yeah, I think Oregon,
Delaware.
Yeah, and it's varying degrees of legality. So like Cliff and I took a motorcycle trip. We went riding motorcycles in California this year. Now in California, it's completely legal for casual consumption, recreational consumption is what they call it, just like Colorado. And then I think that maybe Oregon did that too.
Oregon
that right?
is
Oregon and Washington. I think both.
Yeah.
So it's
Washington for sure.
So it's happening, and what you'll see is, and I'll tell you, this is one of the things that Trump could do right now that would redeem him in the eyes of so many, is if he would just take cannabis off of Schedule 1.
If they rescheduled.
If they would reschedule it, he would be a hero of the people immediately in some circles.
And might get reelected.
And he might, yeah. So
rescheduling, one of the things that, and I don't remember who I talked to about this, that rescheduling would open avenues to the commerce aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely, because you can't. One of the things that's happening that's a big problem in California and Colorado in particular right now that I know of, that I've read about, is the simple fact that there's nothing you can really do with the money once you make it.
Yeah.
The banks are federally controlled. You take Schedule 1 money and put it into a federally insured bank. You can't do that.
They had a lot of issues early on in Colorado, and a lot of robberies and stuff because people are dealing in cash. And when people get into the whole gateway drug and the effect of it, it's bad for kids. So is alcohol.
Alcohol does way more damage than weed ever did.
And when it was, again, I want to know your experience. Well, as a cop, I will take, if I had to pick any drug for somebody to be on that I have to interact with, it's going to be weed.
Absolutely.
Because, anything else. Yeah. Those guys are either funny or just, out of it. And most people would tend to stay inside. Now, then again, you got the dudes that are hotboxing, driving around, smoking, and I popped every one of those guys I could. But you get people.
You don't have to do it in your car, going down the street. Use good judgment. That'd be like just driving down the street with a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
Nobody would do that.
It's like go home and smoke. Go to your buddy's house.
Yeah.
Don't sit at a stoplight blowing smoke with a cop right next to you. That's the kind of thing. And then you have to balance all that against just how many people are chronically stupid,
Yeah.
And
that's
then,
a lot.
So being a cop, there was that. Being a musician, you're around a lot of people who use it, and you realize again, do you want your drummer to show up drunk or high?
Yeah.
Take a pick. And
Bill Hicks had a really good bit about that back in the day.
Yeah,
He said the first thing, you get a couple of good old boys drunk on whiskey and they're like, "Hey, buddy, I'm going to kick your ass." And the fight is on. You get a couple of dudes who are high on weed and they're like, "Hey, buddy, hey."
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. That's just my 2 cents on legalization. I want to know honestly, okay, DWIs go way up, and some places say yes, some places say no, and different cops say different things in the cop forums. Mm-hmm. I want to know all this stuff before I say, okay, I think it's a great idea. But at the same time, I was at MD Anderson the other day. And there was a family, very typical Texas family, with an old man sitting in a wheelchair, very old man. Mm-hmm. And I looked at his cap. Did I tell you the story?
I think you did.
I looked at his cap. He's wearing a ball cap, and it was veteran, and I was too far away to read. But he had a fruit salad on it, the series of medals. And I was looking at that fruit salad, and I thought, that's custom. Like, you would buy all your ribbons at the PX, or they would give them to you, and you have to arrange them and trim them and all and slide them on the little deal. Or you call up this company and you tell them these are the ribbons, and they actually print them on one big acrylic thing, and it's legal to wear.
Oh, wow.
His was one of those. So I'm thinking, okay, so that's his shit. And I'm trying to read the ribbons, and I'm horrible at it, and I'm kind of guessing his age. And get to listen, and the dude was a belly gunner in World War II.
Wow.
Right? He was probably in a wheelchair just because he couldn't carry his giant testicles anymore.
Yeah.
And so he's obviously there with cancer like the rest of us, and he's about to get scanned, which is disturbing to some people, getting poked in the tube and all that. And he asked one of the people with him, 3 or 4 people, and he said, "Could I have my pills?" And they said, "Daddy, it's 2:00. You don't take such and such until." He goes, "No." He goes, I'm a little freaked out. I want a Xanax." And I thought, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Toss that dude a Benzie.
No doubt.
He needs it, And so he takes one, and then the whole family engages in this conversation. They're all on Xanax. And they've all taken it that day. And I'm listening to them throughout this conversation, and they're just normal people dealing with their problems. The old man is probably dying. None of us in that ward are in particularly good shape. And I'm sure they're upset, and I'm sure they have other problems. But they're sucking down Xanax, and so what's the difference between the two in terms of abuse and all that, and what's accepted and what's not? And I joke about how I'm from West Texas, where the Xanax wine moms vote against.
I'm a utilitarian in this regard, in many things. In fact, Cliff often teases me for being such a utilitarian. But I'm telling you that human beings, as a matter of their nature, seek to alter their conscience. The fact that we have to go to sleep every night is part of that, and it always smacks of hypocrisy to me to see some, not picking on conservatives, because I'm getting conservative in some ways, but these ultra conservatives, especially the ones that are just out on the fringe about drug use and mad this and all this, but they're, the first thing they do when they get home is they hand their kid an iPad to keep him occupied so they can F off into the other room and pop a Xanax and drink some wine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tim.
But they don't want cannabis legalized though. But they do that every night as a matter of procedure.
And it's so weird. You go to a doctor and you say, "Oh, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit stressed," and they hand you the Xanax or whatever right away. I mean, I've had doctors, take some Zoloft. If you're feeling stressed, take some Zoloft. Or it's become so easy for the doctors to go ahead and prescribe those mind numbers.
Yeah.
That's really what they are. They're just something that makes you just sort of.
They don't make you feel better. They make you feel nothing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, they gave me very low doses of Xanax. I was raging pretty bad, not like beating my wife or anything, but the difference in what the chemo does and the steroids, it's like back to glasses. It's like I threw my reading glasses across the room because the earpiece cracked again. And it was it, and I'm there, and I know I'm not pleasant to deal with. And the doctor's like, here, it's like a 1/4 milligram. And I can see this, and I'm like, and I take it, and I'm going, okay. I see what people are doing. I have no idea what it's like to take a lot of it.
And make sure I don't want to disparage Xanax. I don't want to disparage prescription drugs that do a good job for people. But I'm saying you can't then engage in that, in using that, and then say, but all this stuff over here, this you shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm driving at.
But our generation, and the reason we do that is, I think, who smoked weed was losers. Openly. Who did you know about?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
in like 80s in high school.
The social stigma was so high.
You youngins.
Yeah. You grew up in the golden age of that, man. There wasn't any stigma about it at that time, man. It was all about experimenting and exploring your own mind.
Yeah, and we were the just say no people. And like I said, you didn't, if you're a straight-laced kid or in a town like this, people didn't talk about it. They weren't open about it. You didn't know. I will tell you right now, every blue-haired grandmother at MD Anderson
is on the cannabis.
Tommy Chong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, being a cop and all, it wasn't a treatment option for me. So, but a lot of people swear by it. I've overheard people talking to chemo nurses and all, and it's huge among cancer patients.
When did you first see weed? What age?
Let's see, 15 at Lee High School in science class.
Somebody pulled out a bag.
A kid, and he was an asshole and a complete loser and was bragging about it. He sat next to me and was proud of it. And he pulled some weed out of his drawers.
That's what, 1980s?
86-ish.
How about you?
I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and I was at a lake party at Nasworthy.
Oh, really?
With a bunch of people, cousins and friends, and it was just this big one of those deals where somebody had a 68 Galaxy and a loud stereo, and everybody took beer, and there was beer and weed, and it was the 70s. I was a little kid. I was probably 75, 76.
And your parents were part of the party.
Well, my mom occasionally was, but she was very judicious about her use of it, and later, and then once she got a little older, she gave it up completely. But she had me. And so she didn't want to, she was very responsible about how much she drank and that sort of thing in those big social situations where everybody brought their motorcycles and their hot rods and their kids and had a barbecue. The scene in your mind.
Yeah.
So she was always smart about it, but my mom was never a stoner or anything. But I know there were times when I was little, in particular, where she was part of that scene. Yeah. And quite honestly, some of the coolest people I ever met in my life as a young kid were part of that scene. That's where I got interested in motorcycles and have been a motorcycle my whole life. The bikers and all those people, I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. They're wonderful.
Yeah, and as I got older, and like I said, I was in law enforcement and a musician in a lot of circles, and I'm hanging out with software developers and engineers and people like that, and I kind of understood what they're, but then you'd cross the street and there's a guy dropping a whiskey talking about how weed will screw up your mind, and I had one guy tell me, I don't need it, adrenaline's my drug, glug 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 glug. And so, and then I could do, and we're going to do this a cop episode because I have so many just funny stoner stories, but then again, I've had to fight on the ground for my life more than once, and they were drunk, or PCP, like the worst skin injury, and now I'm so screwed up on chemo. I can't remember which hand it's this one. Got my hand sliced open by a guy on PCP, so
Now you're talking shit.
Yeah. Now you're into the real thing.
The stuff that actually is not good for you.
Yeah.
Stuff that's highly destructive.
Yeah. So there's such a. It's impossible to be absolute, and I again have a real problem with people who don't have any experience with it, and I don't say you have to use it. Like I said, not an option for me. Piss tested government employee. There's no way I could do it. But what's my opinion of being around the people who did? The worst part of it was the illegal drug trade.
Yeah.
Because as far as I think in my life, I have known one guy I would say was positively addicted to it. And he was a musician, and he would get irritable and couldn't poop if he couldn't get the weed.
Yeah. I was on tour for many years with a guy who was exactly like that.
I toured with this guy, and I told him, man, look, you damn well better not have this stuff in the ride with me. We'd have to go through border patrol checkpoints and stuff, and I told him, I said, if they pull this thing apart, we've got to dump all of our gear out and go through all that. So you're going to load it up. I'm going to go down to the pub there in Terlingua. I'm going to go to La Kiva, and I'm going to order a meal and sit down, and you're going to unpack this whole damn thing.
Yeah.
So, but it was everywhere, and eventually, I told the guys, look, dude, just nothing hard, and don't do it in front of me.
Right.
And I never had any issue with it. They go out and get blown up and get on stage and think they were really good, but. It was one of those deals. Without question, the best musicians that I jammed with were straight. And I can't play.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I can't play worth the shit after 2 or 3 beers. So
I get stupid fingers, man. I can't.
I
have to have a clear head. I'll have some beers and hang out afterward, but man, during a performance, I'm going to be clean-headed.
Yeah. I can't do it, and it's amazing what some of these guys can. You read those stories.
Well, a lot of them have just been doing so much of it for so long that their tolerance is so high, and it takes so much to get an effect. That they can pull it off. They're probably as sober as you and I on stage, completely clear-headed. But they got. Some people their minds are wired wrong.
Yeah.
You look at guys like Jeb Corliss. He's got to get in a wingsuit and go 200 miles an hour down the side of a mountain to feel normal.
Yeah.
And so we're all very individual in how our brain processes what is normal.
It's like they said about Hendrix that he needed a certain amount of drugs to be normal.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
Go from there. But yeah. Hey, so we did get a couple of Burr Williams questions.
Okay.
We came through on Reddit. And the big one, a guy asked me, what are some good hiking trails within 1 hour? And I couldn't answer that because when I go hiking, I think backpacking. So I drive to the quads and disappeared, and I told the guy, sorry, I can't help you. Now I'm thinking, well, I'm not the guy to ask because I'm a little stupid about it. I figured you would be the dude to talk to.
Well, unfortunately, since so much of the land is private, you've got to know somebody.
Yeah.
And if you go south of here, down past Rankin, there is quite a bit of really cool country it's mesas and cliffs and all of that sort of stuff. Most of it is private owned. But if you go on a little bit further south down to Independence Creek, which is south of Sheffield and another 20 miles, there is a Nature Conservancy property there.
Oh, okay.
And next to that is Joe Chandler's old ranch, which is one of those, what do you call it? It's a ranch for dudes, a dude resort ranch. Sort of
is that here?
It's south of Sheffield.
Okay, it's further
right
down there. Okay,
but if you go to Joe Chandler's, you can rent a cabin from that family, and you've got about I would say 1,200 acres that you can roam over. Part of it is Independence Creek, part of it's Pecos River. It's real pretty rugged country, and like I say, if you also belong to the Nature Conservancy, you can get permission to stay at the Oasis Ranch, which is right upstream from the Chandler's Ranch. And so that whole little valley right there is one of my favorite places to go hike and walk around. Now, it's sort of weird. my folks first started going down there in the 1940s when Joe Chandler was alive. Mm-hmm. It's his grandkids that are taking care of it now. But you've got these big old huge live oaks. You've got this running creek. You've got a place that's deep enough you can go swimming in, and it's a beautiful place to go. And that's probably your best choice for someplace fairly close to Midland, but that's still 100 miles away. Now, when I want to go hike just for an afternoon, I'll go over to Big Spring. And the state park and the city park both have some pretty good trails that you can go walking on, but it's not some place that you're going to go hike and put up your tent and camp and all that sort of stuff. It's just a nice place to take an hour or 2 hours of walking. Now, I'm real lucky. My mom, when she was doing her bird research back in the 40s and 50s, got to know a number of the local ranchers. And I've maintained some of those relationships. And so when I personally want to go hike, I go out to the Buchanan Ranch or the Galladay Ranch or these other ranches where, you know, it's grandkids of the folks that my mom knew, but they still accept me coming out there because I wear a pair of binoculars around my neck and call myself a bird watcher.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah, which one was the one we rode to on one of your episodes? The motorcycles, and we went up the hill. Is that the state or the city park?
That is the state park. Yeah,
okay.
Up on Scenic Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Scenic Mountain, yeah.
There are some really good hiking trails there, and also there's a really good disc golf course there.
Yeah, there is.
And there's a lot of fun to be had
Speaking of
there.
weed, there's a disc golf
yeah,
course.
Exactly. Speaking of guys who smoke a lot of weed,
yeah.
There's something about there's a big connection between the average disc golfer and cannabis. But yeah, that really is a good place to go hiking, and it's just that's an underutilized park.
Yeah.
Another place is go over to Odessa, and their Comanche Trails Park, which is right along the interstate. It's about a mile-long paved walkway,
and it goes through a really beautiful area.
Yeah, sure does.
I have
that's
never
a great
done
place.
Comanche. I got to try that because now a mile would be a stretch.
And of course,
so I got to try it.
And of course, the I-20 pond is a great place.
I was going to ask about that. How much trail is there?
1.5 miles paved.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you
and you've got to go the whole route.
Yeah. Say thank you for the photography you were pulling out of that place. I want to get you in here, probably with John Capadonna, and talk about photography. You guys have pulled off some amazing stuff. I absolutely love what you guys are doing. And you shoot from a blind there, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I walk along with the camera around my neck, and
amazing stuff.
I've got, what do they call it? It's a S150 or whatever Canon. It's a fairly cheap camera. It's a no extra lenses. It's just got a zoom on it.
Yeah.
And the zoom goes out to, I want to say 2400. I mean, it's got this incredible zoom. So like that picture I posted the other day of the hawk.
Yeah.
I was from here to my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that picture, and all I got was his face because that zoom is that good. And even though there's some digital noise, I don't care. I mean, that's...
the stuff you're posting is fantastic. I mean, not only is it composed well, I mean, it's just good. I've seen a lot of pros that couldn't do some of the stuff you've done.
That's all just...
And it's being there often. I think it is a lot of that.
That's part of it. Yeah.
I think a lot of people expect just to run out for an afternoon and catch something like that.
Nature photography is often about patience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I get so
repetition,
many.
just being out there.
Yeah.
And also knowing what you're taking a photograph of. I mean, I'll see a plant, and I'll look at that plant and I'll go, okay, this can be used for food. It was used this way by the Indians. Here's its English name. Here's its Latin name. Maybe here's the Spanish name. I've got all that knowledge already locked up in my head. And so when I take a picture of something like that, I've already got all those stories behind that picture. And so many folks, when they go outside, they don't know the stories of what they're seeing. So they don't really know how to pick out the very essence of something. They just point the camera and shoot, because they don't really have that sort of a focus to understand what they're seeing. And that's, again, something that I have preached all my life about, is how we don't teach our kids, ourselves, or anybody else about what's around us.
No.
It's always stuff over there. To me, if you go outside, you should go, okay, that's mesquite. It tastes good when the beans are red, and you can make tiswin out of the beans when you ferment them, and the Apaches used it in August, and, here's this ton of information behind that thing that is not imparted.
Yeah.
We don't
I totally agree. It's funny you mentioned that. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast a couple of days ago. He was talking about the very same thing. We are such a consumer society, a consumer and throwaway society, that we don't understand that we are removing ourselves from the chain of nature and the chain of our environment. He talked about how when you kill an animal, there's actually less waste if you kill an animal and leave it in the field, because it will 100% be reclaimed by nature, from buzzards to bears to insects to bacteria to composting itself and going back down into the earth. And he talks about it's a zero waste game when we work 100% with the toilings of nature. But when we try to separate ourselves from it, that's where the waste starts, and that's where our disconnection begins.
Well, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You think about all the plastic, what do they call them, gears, GYRES.
Oh, yeah.
Where you go to the Sargasso Sea in the Atlantic, and you travel 150 miles through plastic. Or you go to the South Pacific, west of Ecuador, and 500 miles of plastic.
Yeah, it all ends up there.
There's a Netflix series called, it has a very simple name, like Removed or something.
Okay.
I'll put it in the comments. A very interesting take on consumerism and what's happening. And I thought of you when I saw it, and I meant to write it down on my Burr Williams notes that I keep here that I can't read because I didn't bring my glasses. Because I watch things, again, Tim and I are politically mostly in agreement on the libertarian side of things, which means we're arrogant and think we're really smart, and we hate everybody. But I watch it. I watch these things from when the people are talking about environmentalism or whatever. I watch this from an angle of, are you trying to put this off on me personally, or just people of my race, or just my country, or how are we looking at this?
Is it political in nature, or is it truly conservationist in nature? Because that's what's important.
In my opinion, what I saw, and again, folks, right at this point in my life, I got to watch things 2 or 3 times, was very, there was a lot of factualism. They got a little emotional over IKEA, but I'll come to a point on that. They made an interesting point about that, but the plastic thing was extremely eye-opening. And I thought back to an old George Carlin sketch where he, and when I say old, probably 90s, he said, have you noticed, everybody walking around with their own personal bottle of water? Like, when did we become so how do you say, dehydrated as a people. And so now when they show these scenes in Italy and the Sargasso Sea, there's another one off the West Coast. There's a name for it, and I saw this a lot when I was in the Coast Guard. It's real, and a big chunk of it is disposable water bottles. Mm-hmm. And I can understand when people drink bottled water, they don't want to drink tap water. If you really want to see a kid freak out right now, drink out of a water hose.
Yeah. Oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah. We buy RO water.
I love the taste of green hose.
Oh, yeah. Reminds me of childhood.
We buy RO water, and I use Nalgene bottles. I think we've broken one since she and I have been together. I lost 2 on a motorcycle trip. Mm-hmm. I lost an entire gear bag. And we do that and buy RO water, and the taste is gone, and whatever else is there. The rest of it is just marketing.
Yeah. Part of it is this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go and you can get anything, and it'll be delivered.
Yep.
And that's really the sad thing.
The one about IKEA and furniture, and it's about creation of consumer trends, and it was a big in deforestation and what's going on in Romania and things like that, where they say, okay, back in the day, furniture was meant to last generations and people passed it down. That's true. There's also cheap crap back then when people say, what do you call it, survivor bias? They don't make stuff like they used to. Well, all the old bad shit from the 50s is in a landfill. But it was true that it was made in better woods, better techniques, and all. We have some heritage furniture, from people, and it's people in our family, and it's good stuff. Then to now, where people will buy a sofa and they'll keep it 3 years like a T-shirt, and they'll toss it and buy another one.
Yeah.
And that's what's been created in this, and that's what's eating up a lot of resources. And then, of course, China, what's going on there with trade. But that was, to me, they were talking about the safety was the big deal because a lot of kids are dying. And I thought, I'm sorry about your children climbing and falling over that. We dealt with the giant TV on the TV tray. I rode
standing up in the back of a pickup truck, man.
I get that, but they approached it from that angle a lot, and I my deepest sympathies. But when we're throwing away furniture seasonally, now we're dealing with something totally different. So,
but it's so easy.
Yeah,
and that's
the deal.
That's exactly what it comes
and if you make
comfort
a good
and
if you make a good wage, then you don't feel bad about, okay, that's my summer sofa.
Yeah.
So excessive.
Yeah, I'm that way. I remember, people were relating banning of shopping bags to, I don't know, communism or Satanism or whatever, and the person I was talking to, I said, "You are the one who always gets on me about the good old days and how great things were in the 20s and all this. When you guys would go buy nails, you had to bring your own bucket, or you were going to carry the shit out in your pocket." That's how. But that's kind of a thing now, which people view it as hipster and whatnot, is to go to a place, and if you want peanuts, well, you better bring a jar because you're not gonna walk out with
I worked in a supermarket. I worked for M System Supermarket on the South Rankin Highway when I was 16. And I was right there at the transition period where they went from paper bags to plastic. And we were trying to figure out how the little holder worked and how we were going to put people's groceries in these plastic bags. But the whole narrative that we were fed, across the country was that these plastic bags, by God, they were going to save the trees. They were going to be so much better for the environment. And looking back on the idiocy of that now, producing all of that plastic and what has happened to that plastic.
Look across the street from Walmart.
Look across the street anywhere in Midland, Texas, where there are mesquite trees.
Yeah.
Those are plastic bag trees. It's unbelievable.
They showed
and I guarantee you, if all that plastic was out in those places in the ocean, if it had been paper products instead, it would have already mostly biodegraded, sunk to the bottom, been consumed by bacteria. So it's funny how I bet if we were, I don't know this for a fact, but I bet if we were to go back and do the research, there was a powerful plastic producer behind that.
You need to watch.
It's called Rexine over in Odessa.
Yeah, and they were like, they had this great idea for plastic grocery bags, and they framed the sale of those bags in the narrative that it was good for the environment.
They also, according to the documentary, there was a lot into the recycling of it by these producers, when in fact very small amounts of it, typically just containers, detergent containers, can be recycled. And the recyclers hate the plastic bags because they jam the machinery, and you can't recycle them into anything. I think into anything but those bags. So that's all huge. And I'm again, we talk about environmentalism in politics, and we'll go back to our arrogant stance on things in general. And again, Tim and I have spent a lot of time alone in a vehicle together, with our drummer. And
driving him crazy.
And all this.
Coming back from a show.
But, no matter what you think about the politicization of environmental things, and we have to admit both sides have completely just totally screwed the pooch on politicizing it. Whether you are Christian, whether you're environmentalist, atheist, whatever you want to be, I think we can all agree to be good stewards.
It's
of our planet.
It has always been about true conservationism for me.
So that's my deal. On that topic of conservationism and such, somebody wanted me to ask you. I know the answer because I saw the pictures. They heard there were white pelicans at the duck pond.
Yep.
And
wow.
I looked at the picture. Them's white pelicans. So
every year, if you go to Balmorhea, Roswell, down to the lakes at San Angelo, Robert Lee, you will find 200, 300, 400, 500 pelicans. It's a common thing for them to be here every winter. Now, for them to be in our duck pond, that's fairly unusual, but they show up there every 3 or 4 years for sure. And what was it, yesterday or the day before? I saw 3 of them floating around right next to the shore. So it's not something that's all that surprising to a bird watcher.
Right.
But for somebody that glances out the window at the duck pond and goes, "Oh my gosh, there's a pelican there." No, there's a story behind it. And like I say, if you go to Balmorhea, you'll find 300 or 400 of them there right now. Or no Roswell.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the interesting thing is out of all those white ones, once in a while you get a brown one, which is...
That's what I was going to ask. I'm really familiar with the brown pelicans from Corpus Christi and all, but I didn't know that they moved like that.
They are much, much more rare here in Midland County. I want to say there was one at Green Tree about 8 or 9 years ago, and it stayed for, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks.
Is it wintertime or fall?
Wintertime.
Cool.
Same story. There was one here at the duck pond, I want to say 15, 18 years ago, and it stayed maybe 2 weeks. Once in a while, when you go down to Robert Lee and run into that big group of the white pelicans, you'll find a brown one there more likely than you would find it elsewhere. I don't think I've ever seen a brown one at Balmorhea with all the white ones down there, nor at Roswell. That's the weird thing about being a bird watcher or the son of a bird watcher, is you sort of start looking at the landscape as this time of year there's going to be X amount of birds here, and here's going to be the species. You do that, you go, okay, it's December. We should have juncos and yellow rump warblers out the window. Your mind gets sort of trained to go, okay, it's now time to look for this species. And so there are, here in Midland County, we've done Christmas bird counts since 1947.
This is through the
Audubon Society, but the Midland group never was much of the Audubon Society. They called themselves the Midland Naturalists. And
okay, I remember that.
Midnats is their short term.
Excuse me, Burr, would you gentlemen like another round,
Sure.
please? Tim's the official bartender because he's closer.
I will be happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
But like I say, we started doing those Christmas counts in the 1940s. And I've done 30 or 40 of them.
What started that? I mean, was there a purpose in mind, or
the Audubon Society did start that whole concept back in, I want to say, the 1920s, as just a way to record where birds were that time of year. But locally, it became sort of, there was 2 or 3 folks, a fellow by the name of Ted Jones, who was a geologist here in town, and also my mom, and there was another fella, I'm trying to remember his name, but he was also another geologist. That was a real cool thing about right after World War II. Here was all these scientifically minded people that came here to work in the oil field, but they got involved in other things. And so there was this small little core group that really got into birds, and I want to say they would do as many as 12 of these Christmas counts in a 2-week period, three-week period. They would go from here to the Guadalupes, to Big Bend, to Lake Thomas, down to San Angelo. They would travel all the time. I mean, I can remember as a kid being down at Del Rio, getting in the back of the truck and writing everything down after sunset, and then getting in the car and driving to Big Bend and doing it the next morning. That was how serious these people took this whole process of doing Christmas counts. Now, I don't even think there might be a Midland Christmas count, but there's none of the others left at all. Things have completely changed from those days. It was like science, more science, more science. Let's do this for real. But nowadays, it's like, I'm on a Corolla, we're gonna go back to sleep.
I feel you. That's then, and one of the things that's unique to the area, and you touched on it, was all these people that came in, and you have the geologists and you have the chemists and all these different people from all over the world. They brought a lot of cool stuff. Like, that's how our fencing club got started. We did an episode on that. One of my astronomy professors was a geologist. Now, I do not particularly find geology interesting. It's one of those things I think you need to know a bit about it. But like my high school or sciences class was his name's Cliff Cuffey. I think he's still here. And Cliff is almost like 80s movie grade geek. And you would adore it, but he taught an astronomy course at Midland College, the one of the best ones I ever took. But he said, I'm a professional geologist, and he said and there's several different classes. He said, but this is a solar system class. There are 8 planets in our solar system, and you're standing on one of them, and you're going to learn a lot about it. So we did our labs at McDonald Observatory, but we stopped at every road cut and every feature, and we had to learn a lot about it. Now, my wife is fascinated with geology, so she's always asking me questions. And I tell her, she'll say, well, what kind of rock is that? I said, baby, nobody has ever cared what kind of rock that is. And she'll, you're just such a jerk. And I'll say, no, it's the most boring science ever. And then she'll say, really, seriously, was it? And I'll go, it's pre-Cretaceous chert, and it hurts me to say that. So, and you posted a fossil picture, and I meant to bring one of my fossils. I forget now what it's called. Wonderful road cut along I-10 where you can dig them up by the buckets.
Yeah.
What are those? Is that an ammonite?
Crinoids.
Yes. Yes. Some fantastic ones you can pick up there.
Yeah.
And,
I've gotten tons and tons of pieces of ammonite. I have an almost complete ammonite fossil, and then tons of shellfish
Pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, from down in the Castle Gap.
Folks,
Yeah, you go south of here and you get into those mesas, and they're all over the place.
if you guys are still listening to our record-long podcast that I am totally enjoying here, we'll segment it. I watched one today that was 3 hours long, and I'm fascinated.
I watch 3 hour long podcasts all the time.
Anyway.
We're good.
If there's anybody here to do that, it's Burr Williams. I'm not going to lose the thought. You're not getting away.
Yeah, we're talking about...
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Don't. No sudden moves, because I'll forget. If you, and we got people listening all over the world, go to Google Earth, start at Midland, Texas, find Alpine, Marathon, Terlingua, all that area, up to I-10 around Balmorhea, and turn on your community feature, the one that will show other people's posts, and you will find the road cuts. And what a road cut is, not to insult anybody's intelligence, but it's a road with a hill that's going to be too big,
too much grade for big trucks.
Grade. Yeah, and they'll cut it, and it will reveal some amazing geology from back during the, especially during
mostly Cretaceous,
the Cretaceous, and when the old pyroclastic flows are there. And there's one it's a thrust and fold. Painting me to say all this is so much geology.
I wish Aaron was here.
Aaron knows it. There's a really neat thrust and fold where you can see literally where a layer was broken and into waves, and you can see not only that cut do it, but further down it's some fascinating stuff. And then you get into Big Bend and people like Aaron, who's a friend of ours, who's a master's in geology. He's an environmental scientist, and he'll absolutely break your head.
And works with my wife.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Yeah,
and he and I have been known to brew a whole bunch of beer together.
Yeah. Okay.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
So let's talk about poop.
It always ends with poop.
Yeah. This is a question for Burr. Although it's destroying my soul, I still follow Next Door. Again,
that will destroy your soul.
Watching Next Door started as a thing I had to do with my job, in law enforcement investigation. It's a good means of
maintaining
of data and and
it's good intel as well.
Yeah, it is. It's good intel for anyone, but then it's total crap. So foxes move around a lot this time of year.
Foxes are more common in town than they are out in the country.
Right.
You've probably got at least one family living on this street that you share with Capadonna behind you and Johnny across the street down there.
Yeah.
So you've got a family that lives here. And if you were somebody that went out at 2 or 3 in the morning or had a game camera or something like that, you would get to know those individual foxes. And that story occurs over and over and over across this town, because think about it, all the food that people put out for their cats and their dogs and that sort of stuff, but also you go to Burger King and you don't quite finish that burger and you throw it out the window, which too damn many people do.
Yeah.
And so here's the foxes waiting. Yep. And so there's foxes. There's also bobcats in town. On the edges of town, the coyotes have gotten to be about as common, but they don't seem to come in this far into town where you are. But as far as foxes, go outside at 3 a.m. and you'll see one.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, there was another notice that they're going to drag away your dogs and your children, and every once in a while I'll post on there.
A fox is going to eat a mouse.
Yeah, that's
period.
Yeah, the foxes, the canids, and they're tiny, and they're not going to want to fight your cat. They're maybe a kitten. I've seen a few kittens that I think may have fallen to a fox. Of the feral kittens, they get picked off. But other than that,
when I lived out in the country, I had a fox family that lived in one of my sheds. And we could go out during the day and look up on top of the boards where it slept all the time, or they slept all the time, and you could look up there and go, okay, say howdy, and you go on down, get your stuff out of the shed and go on. And I had 2 cats that were outdoor cats. And one time I had some visitors over, and we were sitting out in lawn chairs, and here comes the fox right up to my cat.
mm-hmm.
And they sniff noses, and they rub against each other.
Wow.
They knew each other. They had seen each other every day for years. And so this whole idea that foxes are going to do damage to your Chihuahua, sorry.
Yeah.
They don't weigh much more than a Chihuahua.
I would rather have a family of foxes than feral cats.
Yeah.
Because to my knowledge, the foxes have not peed on my front door. And to my knowledge, they don't pee in the garden where my dog hunts and comes in smelling like cat pee.
Yeah.
So we're totally cool. The poop question, is it the ringtail that poops on things, or is that fox? By that I mean
that is something that, strangely enough, a lot of our wild critters do. I've seen coyotes purposely find a piece of trash on the side of the highway and poop on that piece of trash.
okay.
And foxes, yeah, I've up in the Guadalupes in a place I call the main office. There's a fox that lives there, and there was always this one big old boulder, and on top of that boulder was its pooping place.
We lay a deuce okay.
And so they pick out those sort of places. But I've seen cats do it too. I mean, I've seen bobcats do it too. Out at Sibley, there was one place near the kids' garden, right before you got to it, right on a curve. Probably once a week, there would always be bobcat poop in that very same place.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed hunting and hanging out around the observatory we have in Blackwell that, like for instance,
that's a great place.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome.
So
I love that country.
I only have one issue with foxes that I'll issue an open letter to ask them to stop doing. I'll get to that next. It involves the observatory, but there's a roadway that I frequently walk on. And I bypass it hunting and all kinds of stuff. And there's a piece of galvanized metal that has laid in the middle of the 2 ruts forever, and it's, I don't know, about the size of Tim's book. And there's always a turd on it. And somebody told me, and I think I told my buddy wrong, I thought it was always ringtail. But we have an old well that's capped, so it's about an 8 or 9 inch pipe that's welded over it. And for a period of a couple of months this summer, something was always on there. And sometimes it had the, coyotes and fox. They tend to look like what your dog puts out. Ringtails, it always looks like a granola bar. But fox, and depending on what they eat, can be full of seeds and all. And now at the hunting cabin, there's always one. Huh. And on the corner of the observatory platform, there's something there. But I was just curious because now I'm seeing them in here, and then the reason I'm asking, a lady in the neighborhood saw a ringtail. And
that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Ringtails, I guess the first one I heard of was at Sprayberry, probably back, I want to say in the 80s, and then there was one that was seen at Midland College in the 90s, and then in the late 90s, one moved into the attic at St. Anne's church, the school. And in fact, it was above the choir room. And that one lived there for 2 or 3 years. They're another one of those things that if you go out at 2 or 3 in the morning, you're probably going to see one.
Right. They're nocturnal.
They're very nocturnal, and they're also arboreal, meaning they're always up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They don't ever actually. They have revelry. They don't actually sleep. Yeah. They're interesting. Growing up, as a little kid before we moved here to Midland, I was born in San Angelo, and ringtails were much more common from the Edwards Plateau down into the basin, down around all the lakes and the rivers. And so, I saw several of them growing up. And then I had a buddy who lived across the street from my grandparents for 50 plus years, over 50 years. And in fact, until he passed away a few years ago, a guy named Fred Smickle, who is a trapper for the state. And so I always would get the skinny from him on, what species were doing well, which ones weren't. And the ringtails would ebb and flow as far as how they thrived, depending on a lot of factors.
That's a real interesting endeavor. You're speaking of trappers. Back 40 or 50 years ago, it wasn't uncommon for a teenager to go out and set traps and get a bobcat skin and get a coyote skin and sell it for some bucks. And so I knew a number of folks growing up that would do something like that. But nowadays, almost nobody traps.
Nobody traps.
Yeah. Nobody traps.
No. I'll tell you, I did see a kid when I was a patrolman. They lived in the neighborhood just south of the dunes off of Midkiff Road.
Mm-hmm.
Little kid. He looked like he was maybe 8. And I saw him on a cold night crossing that field with a jackrabbit over his shoulders, big as him, and a Daisy air rifle.
Oh, wow.
And I knew a lot about, I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but I know a lot about hunting rabbits, and I know a lot about that air gun, and I can tell you that kid is a badass hunter.
Yeah.
Because to get that close to a jackrabbit, and drop it, because that thing was the size of my dog. Mm-hmm. And
You're talking right before the airport out there.
No.
Not past the draw?
He was on the north side. I just say south. He was on the north side of the draw.
Oh, okay.
So if you left the draw and walked north, and there's some houses out there, and that's where I ran into him.
Okay.
And he lived further into the housing area. So he was lived up toward what are the name of those streets? Jasmine and all that back there where the fishing place used to be.
Yeah.
He lived somewhere there, so he had a ways to go. This little dude had gone a long way, and it was cold. And he was wearing a long sleeve shirt, and I just pulled up next to him, and I said, "Hey, man, if you're not doing anything wrong, I just see if you wanted to ride." And he goes, "No, I'm good. I'm just walking up here." And I said, "Okay, you're not too cold or anything?" No, I live in that greenhouse over there. Okay. I said, "That's a nice rabbit." And he goes, "Yeah, it's a big one." I said, it was over his shoulder and damn near dragging.
He's going to make a rabbit skin overcoat with that.
And I said, "What you going to do with that rabbit?" And he goes, "I'm going to eat it." And I kind of, I didn't want to ask him, but I drove by the house later and just sort of looked. They were obviously not poor, not like that was the family, the only option for the meal. That kid was just out hunting rabbits, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Last time I've seen anything like that, and don't hear of any sort of trapping.
Yeah.
So
In a lot of ways, being a patrolman, being a cop, traveling the roads, looking and watching, you get a perspective that most people don't.
Yeah.
And you get to see the fiber, the inner workings of our community in a completely different way. And I really appreciate stories like what you just told, because that illustrates the tons of stories that are always constantly going on that nobody pays attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll never be on YouTube. Nobody will ever care, other than here. Oh crap, we're running out of cameras, guys.
Oh, did the cameras die?
Yeah, they're filling up.
Okay.
I didn't think about it. That one.
We better put a capper on this one then.
We will, because this is just But it's the drive's full. That's true, and those stories, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this. I used to go out on FM 1213 and turn on the takedown lights and all my lights and point my spotlight up and drive through and scare up bugs and rats, and there was a couple of owls out there that would come through and do that, and then we got cameras, and I'd turn on my camera and film these owls, because they'll just come right over.
We could do an entire other episode just on stuff we've seen at night with regard to wildlife.
Oh yeah, the pigs and mountain lions and all that. It was truly a great experience, and I've seen all kinds of stuff, exploding meteors, you name it. But we need to shut down, gents. Burr Williams, thank you so much. We enjoyed just a rambling conversation, and I think we got to all of our questions.
You're one of the most favorite guests ever on the Band Cave.
Yeah.
Everybody would told us we were going to be in big trouble if Matt didn't figure out a way to get you.
Yeah, and when's Burr coming back? And hey, next time you got Burr, I want to ask him. So,
hi, my name is Burr Shit.
Fantastic, guys! Thank you so much.
Good times.
We'll do it again.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you. Appreciate you watching this. If you made it this far, like and subscribe.